Some nights change your life in a way you can never go back, and that night was one of those nights for me. I was 63 years old, having spent years living my life by the rules. After I retired, I moved to a quiet town, trying to come to terms with loneliness after losing Henry. I thought I'd spend the rest of my life in peace, but no matter how much you think you've said goodbye to the past, some things show up when you least expect them. James, Henry's stepson, knocked on my door. I hadn't seen him in 3 years. Back then, he was just a reckless kid, but now, standing in front of me, he was a 27-year-old man. Life hadn't been kind to him. I could hear it in his voice when he called, asking if he could stay with me for a while. Of course, I opened my door to him, but when I saw him, I realized I might be the one who needed help. He had changed, his shoulders were broader, his eyes deeper. That boyish look was gone, replaced by something stronger, with a different kind of pull. But the real change came the next night in the kitchen. The air felt heavy in a strange way, and there was a restlessness inside me that I couldn't quite explain. Maybe it was because I wasn't used to hearing someone else's breath in my house. After all those years of living alone, James had been gone all day, and when he returned, I could tell something was weighing on him. He looked tired, and the slight looseness from alcohol was impossible to miss. When our eyes met, I could see that he was carrying something heavy inside. I asked if he was okay, but he just nodded, exhausted. I offered to make him some coffee. As I prepared it, I felt his eyes on me. Even with my back turned, there was something different about the way he looked at me, no more intense than before. James mentioned that the town felt warmer than he expected, but his eyes weren't looking at the kitchen, they were looking at me. My heart pounded, and for a second, I felt exposed. He wasn't just talking about the town. There was a closeness between us, something that had grown without either of us realizing it. As we sat there, I could feel the space between us growing smaller. We shared quiet moments, but there was an unspoken tension lingering in the air. When he spoke about loneliness, I saw a vulnerability I hadn't noticed in him before. He asked me if I had gotten used to it, and I admitted that while I didn't know if I'd gotten used to being alone, I'd learned to accept it. Life had changed, and I had learned to live with the emptiness, even when someone was present. Days passed, and then the distance between us shrank. I started noticing the way my stomach fluttered when our eyes met, or when he laughed at something on the TV. He stayed in more often, and we spent evenings together watching movies, talking. Slowly, it seemed like something was shifting between us. I wasn't the same person I used to be. That night, something felt different. We were watching a movie, and the space between us seemed to close. His hand rested near mine, the warmth from his fingers slowly brushed against me. I became aware of a growing tension, something unspoken, but felt by both of us. Then our eyes met. This time, there was no hesitation. His gaze was deep, unwavering, and filled with something I couldn't place. His lips parted slightly, and I didn't know what to do, but I knew this moment was different. It was the beginning of something I couldn't go back from. James leaned in, his face so close that I could feel his breath on my skin. When our lips brushed, it was tentative, almost like a question, but there was no pulling away this time. The kiss deepened quickly, becoming intense and desperate. It was like something long buried inside me had finally awakened, and I couldn't deny it anymore. When I pulled away, the reality hit me like a wave. This was wrong. Panic rose inside me, and I quickly stood up, needing distance. My hands were shaking as I walked to the kitchen to get some water, but just as I grabbed the glass, I heard a crash behind me. When our lips brushed, it was tentative, almost like a question, but there was no pulling away this time. The kiss deepened quickly, becoming intense and desperate. When I returned to the living room, I saw the shattered glass on the floor and James's hand bleeding from where he had thrown the glass in frustration. I sat next to him, but he wouldn't look at me. His eyes were filled with anger and hurt, and the guilt rushed over me. He asked me if I really didn't want him, if I didn't love him. His words hit me hard, and I realized how fragile he truly was. I had pulled away, and it had made him feel like his worst fear was coming true, that he would be abandoned once again. I reached for his hand gently, careful not to make it worse, and tried to reassure him. This wasn't just a fleeting moment, everything between us had been real. His eyes searched mine, and I could feel his uncertainty. He wanted to believe me, but there was too much fear in him to let go. I stood up, and without thinking, I let the straps of my dress fall down, watching as his gaze followed their movement, dark and hungry. He couldn't find the words, but his actions spoke louder. He pulled me close, and this time I didn't hesitate. This time I surrendered. The kiss was urgent, claiming, and I knew that there was no turning back now. James's touch was firm and certain, his hands moving over me, undoing his shirt one button at a time. His eyes never left mine, as if memorizing every detail. I felt like I was seeing him in a way I never had before. He wasn't the same reckless kid I once knew. He was a man, and everything about him had changed. As he leaned back on the couch, I didn't hesitate. I moved toward him, my hands resting on his chest, and in that moment, I knew that whatever had started that night was something we couldn't walk away from. It was real, and we both knew it. There was no turning back now.